97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4 with Adam Caplan.
I have real confidence that our football operations can once again create a dominant football team.
Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, which dropped yesterday morning, 6 a.m. Adam Caplan, Jeff Mosher. The Inside the Birds podcast will drop again on Monday morning. Get their latest from yesterday, Inside the Birds, wherever you get your podcasts. There he is. Adam Caplan. We got so much going on just 2 weeks before the NFL draft is here. And, of course, you know, Adam, the draft is getting close. And, of course, everything is speculation. Everything is moving. Everything's shaking. And, of course, the Eagles want to move back into the top 10. They wouldn't have it any other way, right?
Right. Mosher and I have been talking about that. Geez, probably 3 weeks ago. Don't be surprised if they move up from 12 to 10 or 9, whether it's a receiver, particularly a corner. A corner to me is if you're trying to build a defense, you're unable to do it with what they have a corner right now other than Darius Slay. They can't. So they have to add a bunch of outside corners. We've said that for several weeks now. And that's something that they'll look to do. There's no question about it. But, man, at 12, Mike, and the reason why there's speculation they might move up, it's unlikely that Horn or Surtain are going to be there. I don't see it. I've said for several weeks now, I know teams that have Horn higher than Surtain on their boards. They like the player better. They're both going to be very good. Like, you're splitting hairs here. They're very well-respected corners, sons of two former NFL players. So that would be, if they were going to trade up, it would be for a corner, no question about it.
Yeah, they're at 12, and if they were to trade up, do you have a thought of, is it 8, is it 9? Because it's not going to be 10 or 11. You're not going to get the Giants and the Cowboys to shake hands and break bread with you. But is it 8, 9, all the way up to 7? And is that third-round pick what would be suitable to get to that spot? Zachgerst, is he in play?
Well, Zachgerst is kind of a throw-in at this point, as he would have been for any other trade. You're talking about a guy, though Eagle fans love him, terrific guy. He just turned 31 this fall. He's coming off of ankle surgery. You know, you're concerned about that. You figure if everything goes well with his surgery, and everything that I've heard has been good so far, he probably has 2 years left in him. You're not going to get much for him. I thought they'd be able to get a 4. They still might, but it's going to be hard, and that would be more for future 4, or a conditional draft pick, which means a 6 or 5 that could be a 4. If certain things happen, of course, that would be for a future 4. So, really, when you look at their situation right now, they don't have a lot to trade other than draft picks. They do have, as we know, 11 this year. We still don't believe they're going to keep 11. It's super highly unlikely they're going to keep 11. Yes, the team is in transition/rebuild, as I've called it. I still think it's a semi-rebuild because it's a bad roster. It needs a lot of work. Mike, if you and I rank 32 teams and who has the most needs, I'm putting the Eagles in top 3 in terms of needs right now. Carolina's right up there. You mentioned them. This is where I'm going to go here with the trade. The GM of the Panthers, Scott Fitterer, remember, he came from Seattle. Seattle typically trades down. They like to accumulate draft picks. They just gave up 3 picks for Sam Darnold, 6 this year and 2 next year. It wouldn't surprise me if they traded down, but unfortunately for the Eagles, if they stay there, they have similar needs. The Panthers need a left tackle, but they need a corner in the worst way. They need to get younger. They need more talent. They're not very talented at corner. And they need receiver. They need depth. They don't have a 3 and a 4 or 5 right now, probably more of a 3 and 4. So they have similar needs. But, yeah, I would agree with you. I don't see them trading with teams in a division in terms of draft picks. Yeah, now they've done it before with Dallas, but this is a different situation, being able to trade when you're high up in the draft. That to me would surprise.
All right, I want to get your take. I know you talked to Greg Cosell. The Inside the Draft is a great piece on Inside the Birds. If you guys haven't really, sat down and just listened to this, I implore you to do that over the weekend and just sit and listen to Greg and Adam and Jeff talk about this. But which wide receivers are the best complement to Jalen Reagor? You got Bateman and Marshall, Collins, guys that are not in that top, part of that draft. I guess Waddle would possibly be available. So when you guys are breaking down these wideouts, how does Greg see X slots and Z's?
Well, it's interesting. The list that I sent you, Mike, most of the players on there we didn't talk to Greg about. I've probably talked to over 6 receiver coaches so far. I do this every year. I just want them to break them down, as you were just saying, who could play that single receiver side, which is the X receiver, who could play the multi-purpose Z position. That's the guy who moves typically. And then who are the best slots, and who are guys who we're not talking about who are going to go a little bit later. So one of my favorite receivers for the draft is Rashad Bateman, who should go in the second. He should go the earliest I think he would go would be the mid-20s. I still think he gets to the second round. I
like him a lot too, but I feel like he or Tony are one of the guys that someone reaches on. I don't want to say reach, but just like you're like, whoa, I didn't see him going like Washington at 19.
Well, Tony, okay, that's a good segue. Okay, Tony to me, you better know how you want to use him. He is a guy that was used on a lot of slot screens and reverses and specialty plays. You have to know what he is at the next level. Because if you don't use him right, he's going to be a gadget player. And he's way more talented than that. I had a receivers coach tell me this week he'd love to coach him because he thinks there's so much upside. He's got him as a top 40 pick, this guy said. Now, Waddle, I want to get over to him.
Yep.
The only way Jalen Waddle makes it to 12 is the teams picking ahead of the Eagles are concerned about his ankle surgery. I'm told it's a 5 to 6 month rehab. He should be okay by late July, early August, ready to go. But if you're passing on him because of his surgery, you must be a team that's desperate to get him on the field this year, because the draft is never about this season. The draft is about future needs with hopefully current needs met. Free agency is totally about current needs. It's 1 to 2 years and that's it. It has nothing to do with down the line. So teams that don't get it, teams that are probably going to have their staffs fired, they're going to worry about Jalen Waddle for the season. You should never worry about this season when you're drafting in the first round. It's always about future seasons.
All right, Bateman, Terrence Marshall, another guy who ran 4.3. Nico Collins, 6'4". He's a big guy. Sage Surratt. These are guys, do you think they are the best fits for what Philly needs?
All right, I would say Bateman, because I'm also told that not only is he an X receiver, I'm also told that he could play any of the 3 positions. He could play the Z position, though he's probably best at X. He could play on the inside because he's played inside before. Marshall could flat out fly. He's got good enough size. He's a second-round pick. At 37, that would make sense for the Eagles. Now, Nico Collins is more of a mid-third round to fourth round pick. A guy who can move. His tape's better than you think. You got to go back a little bit, though, because of the lack of football last season. He's a favorite of a lot of coaches I spoke with. They like him this is the mid-round guy that a bunch of coaches mentioned to me. Sage Surratt is going to be probably 3rd to 5th round. The reason is he's not fast. He's super smart. I had Surratt on, he was on with me actually twice on Sirius. He's a guy that was a tremendous high school basketball player, probably one of the best of his graduating class of high school 4 years ago. He is tremendous as an athlete in terms of being able to go after the football, but he's not explosive in a short area. That's why he's going to drop. Tony, we talked about, and here's my sleeper of the draft here. Josh Palmer from Tennessee. Every receivers coach mentioned him. Greg Cosell mentioned him. He's a guy that ran away from Surtain and ran right by him on tape. He's a guy a lot of people are talking about. He reminds me of, I have to go back some, a former Tennessee receiver. You might remember Denarius Moore, who was drafted by the Raiders. Nobody knew about him. A terrific rookie season. Didn't hear much about him after his first 2 seasons, but he's a guy that a lot of receiver coaches like because he can flat out fly and he's got positional versatility.
All right, Adam, we do have a lot of questions coming in for you. I want to throw a couple your way if you're all right with that.
Yeah, more. I'm not like Andrew DeCecco knows about 300 players. I'm very limited in my scope, just so you know that.
Right. No. I know these are questions that I think that you'll be
more roster related, Eagles roster related.
Correct.
I can help you.
Now this one here. First off, loves ITB. Adam, based on the reports, is there one player in particular that they would target to get in front of Dallas or the Giants?
Corner. Has to be a corner. Receiver. Do they need receivers? Absolutely. There's no question about it. They need I don't feel that they're going to trust Fulgham totally to be the starting X based on what happened last season. So they're going to add an X. It's just a matter of what round is. It's going to be rounds 2 through 4. It would be a corner. Now I don't know who they like better, Surtain or Horn.
Right. But one of those two.
It would be to trade it for a corner. I don't see it being any other position.
All right, this is an interesting one because, all right, let's say the first 11 picks, they're the 4 quarterbacks, the 3 wide receivers, Pitts, Sewell, Horn, and Surtain. They're all off the board, and you're at 12.
Oh, man.
Parsons, is that when you take a linebacker?
Won't happen. I don't see it because of his off-the-field history. He's getting – the issue is not the tape. If he didn't have the off-the-field concerns, he's a top 7 pick.
Okay.
This is just from a character grade, it's not going to be good enough to take him there. I don't. And by the way, they're not taking a linebacker. Pigs will fly before the Eagles take a linebacker that early. It ain't happening.
All right. Those were a couple questions about higher in the draft that I wanted to throw your way because that question there I thought was very interesting because that's the worst case scenario, right?
Well, I'll tell you what. If believe it or not, I've thought about this already because of our show. Jeff and I have had to discuss this. Then Jason Owe, the DN from Penn State, you have to hear Greg Cosell on this kid. Oh my God, Greg, you know Greg's work. He rarely goes overboard, or he's pretty even when he talks. Even players he likes, doesn't get super excited. I've known him almost 20 years. I don't know that I've ever heard him talk about a player like this before. I know that Owe does not have the sack production, but his pressure numbers are good, but he doesn't have the sack production. He's a work in progress type player, but to me, that's what if the board is destroyed, Mike, for the Eagles at 12, then I think you start thinking about moving down.
Have to. That's what I said. I said I don't want to pick 12 in that case. I'm getting out of that spot.
Yeah.
Adam Caplan, Inside the Birds, the Inside the Birds podcast. A new one is out. The next new one will be Monday morning, 6 a.m. Your guys' take on this athletic dysfunction. Now, the way I kind of look at it is this, Adam. I don't doubt that there's dysfunction, but my point would be I feel that there's dysfunction in sports everywhere in today's sports. You have the analytic department and the scouting department, and they don't respect each other in any walk of life. Gabe Kapler and the Philly scouts don't agree. You have dysfunction. The Sixers analytics department and their scouts don't agree. They had dysfunction. I feel like that's what's going on with the Eagles. And by the way, many other organizations in football and other sports.
Mike, let me explain something to you, and you hit on it very well. You're right. There's always finger pointing and mistrust in NFL buildings with coaches or certain members of the front office and an analytics department, particularly sometimes one guy or two guys, because a lot of these analytics, not all of them, but most have not played football before, and they're looking as non-football guys. It's a problem. And then it's how much juice do they have in the building? How much sway do they have? How much input do they get? Now, Jeff and I hit the athletic article. They did a phenomenal job. It's the only one that's really gotten it. I'm not criticizing anyone else who's written about it or spoke about it. Jeff and I have detailed probably half of the stuff already over the years. We would just talk about it after every draft where we thought there were issues. We were the first people to put out that the Arcega-Whiteside pick was based solely on analytics. Okay, this is not if you've been an ITB listener since the spring of 18, really the summer or after that draft, you already know some of the stuff. But their detail was so good, and what we did, we thought the article was so good. We're going to make this a 2-part discussion. We had that discussion, which you talked about on the Thursday show. Our Monday show, we're gonna take up another 20-25 minutes because we couldn't get to everything we wanted to. Yeah. This last show was an hour and 20 minutes. Their stuff was so good and so juicy. We want to get into it. We're going to go into, they talked about Jim Schwartz interviewing with Jeffrey Lurie. There's stuff nobody knows, which we're going to put out on this show.
Yeah, I mean, the notion.
Yeah, we're holding it. We don't want to give away the answers to the test, but that stuff was fun. And I'm laughing because a couple of people from the Eagles texted me and said, "Hey, I know you know about this already. What did you think of it?" I said, "It was fantastic." I'm so glad they talked about it because I had a lot of stuff I'd agreed I would not talk about publicly, but since they did, I'm going to.
Right. Okay. One thing I want to kind of get into, there's so much. The meetings on Tuesdays, hey, you didn't run the ball or you didn't pass the ball enough.
Yeah.
It's preposterous. Yeah. But you've covered the team for how long, Adam?
20 this will be 21 years.
Okay. At any point during your 20 years, did you say, man, Jeffrey Lurie's a problem?
No, I've been on record saying I'm still a big fan of his. However, I've said consistently for the 3 years, and they tried to shut me down years ago when I started getting in. Well, after Joe Banner left, Jeffrey would take more of an interest. But obviously, when Chip Kelly was hired, and then we know the Roseman stuff with Kelly, Jeffrey did not really get super involved when he told his staff or his team, his organization, he was going to take the team back because of the way he let it get taken over by Chip. So in 2016, he got super duper involved. It was driving the train, so to speak, to draft Russell Wilson. It didn't work out because they didn't trade up. Just a series of things he got involved with. And his voice is way too loud. I understand he's the owner, he can do whatever he wants. But this scouting staff, Mike, they spend 9 months with these players. If he wants to get involved, sit in meetings and ask questions.
Yeah.
And if they like a certain player, or Roseman and his group is going to draft a certain player, sit in the meetings and see the tape and see why. If you have an issue with it, speak up. If not, move on.
Louis Riddick told a great story about how they drafted Sean Taylor yesterday on Greeny's show. It was tremendous. They had 10 guys in a room screaming and yelling at each other. And finally, the next day, the draft board had Kellen Winslow at the top. He went in the room, and they had Sean Taylor over top of him, and they ended up going Taylor. But he said,
why did he say? Why did he say it was Taylor?
He said because he got up and just was so passionate about it, and they played the same position, and in the end, I guess but everybody in the room got a chance to present their side of why.
I work with Louis, big fan of his.
Yeah.
We work together at ESPN, but that should never happen. No, there should be no debate with your first round pick. It's already done. The hay's in the barn.
Here's an interesting thing. He's saying this year, the information is coming out so much later because of the you didn't like some people never got a chance to talk to Fields until yesterday.
Yeah. Well, yes. But you know what? Every team, including the Eagles, they've done there because the area scouts or their people in scouting have to talk to these players. So they're getting interviews, but they're not getting in front of them. That's the problem, Mike.
Right.
Without the Senior Bowl, without the Combine, you get limited in-person stuff at the Pro Day. This is a problem when you're not getting face-to-face contact with players, looking them in the eye. The Dillard situation, people brought that up. I think it's very fair. Not that he's a bust, but not getting in front of Andre Dillard and some other players where you're trying to figure them out and their personality, I think it's an issue.
In that story, they mentioned Alex Hallaby. I had never heard of him.
Yeah.
Really? No, I mean, and it's like Yaron Weitzman wrote the book about the Sixers, and there was this Alex Rucker, and I said, is this akin to a guy who has no experience but has the ear?
Yeah, Alex Hallaby has been with the team for several years. Very smart guy. Has had clashes with members of the front office. The coaches over the years, they have had trust issues with him, I'm told. The reason is very simple. He didn't play football. They don't look at him, or even if he played football, it might have been high school. Who the heck knows? But they just his bedside manner, as one source said, was not great because he's very passionate, and there's nothing wrong with being passionate about analytics or numbers. But remember, coaches first are about tape, not numbers, and that's the clash that you have. And Andrew Berry was brought in partially, who's now the Browns GM for his one season with the Eagles, to oversee analytics, and because they knew that Hallaby was someone who needed to be managed.
Last thing with Adam Caplan, we didn't talk to you. 2 signings, Howard Wilson. And Harris, a nice player. They've added 2 starting players. It doesn't make them a Super Bowl contender, but these are 2 smart signings, I think, anyway.
Yeah, 1 year, $5 million for Eric Wilson. That's a good smart. They did is it would have cost them more had they signed him in the first week of free agency. So the numbers came down. He knows the defense. He'll be able to teach the players the defense. This is what happens when new coordinators come in. They bring in guys that they like, and this is what Jim Schwartz did with Nigel Bradham and others. So this makes total sense. It's a smart move. They're going to be a nickel team. They're going to play nickel at least 70% of the time. So he'll be a starting linebacker, and Jordan Howard will compete for the number 2 role. And by the way, Boston Scott, I've been saying this now for a year. He's not a number 2 NFL back. That was a mistake last year. They should have signed somebody with size to back up Miles Sanders. Now, Jordan Howard, I don't know what he has left. He was a sure yardage back. Obviously, when you do that, your average per carry is going to be down. But think about it. He signed a 3-year, $15 million contract and got benched after week 1 with the Dolphins. That's not a good sign.
All right, we hit on a lot there. Football at 4. Check out the new podcast Monday morning. The most recent one is out now, Inside the Birds podcast, wherever you listen to your podcast. Jeff and Adam back Monday for Moshe. DeCecco's been answering all these draft questions that people have been
bombarding a great job
with the draft stuff. So good stuff there. And Adam, of course, have a great weekend.
You too. Thanks.
All right, Adam Caplan, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. And if you check out the